Now, today, I suppose we should turn our attention to the Atlantic, to an event of quiet but profound constitutional resonance. For the first time in nearly half a century, a reigning British monarch, His Majesty King Charles III, will formally open the Canadian Parliament. On the 27th of May, he will deliver the speech from the throne in Ottawa, marking not only a ceremonial milestone, but also a subtle reassertion of Canadian sovereignty at a moment of global stress. Consider first the historical perspective. The last time a monarch performed this role was in 1977, when Queen Elizabeth II, still very much the imperial glue of the Commonwealth, visited a Canada comfortable in its constitutional adolescence. In 2025, things are different. This is no Jubilee tour. This is a moment laden with diplomatic freight. And the King's visit is not just the execution of protocol, it is, in Prime Minister Mark Carney's own words, an historic honour that matches the weight of our times. And weighty times they are. Canada, long presumed to dwell in the safe shadow of the United States, is now contending with a stormier neighbour. Former President Donald Trump, all shouting and hostility before his election, is now a real president and ensconced behind the resolute desk. Orange hair flapping rather uncontrollably in front of the cameras, newly returned to office, only just completed his first 100 days of exhaustion inadequacy, and has declared economic war on Canada, imposing tariffs, muttering threats of annexation, and insinuating the possibility of making Canada the 51st state. This isn't diplomacy, it's bombast, wrapped in belligerence, and yet in the middle of this, Canada has chosen to assert its constitutional uniqueness in the most traditional of manners by summoning its monarch. Now, let's be clear, the King's visit is not partisan. Charles remains constitutionally apolitical, yet profoundly symbolic. His presence, his words, his mere existence in Ottawa at this time function as a form of soft power, an affirmation that Canada is not merely an economic adjunct of the United States, but a constitutional monarchy with identity, tradition, and sovereignty distinct from its southern neighbour. And it's not been lost on anyone that the King, having delayed a tour due to illness, has now chosen this moment when a newly elected government faces external pressure to make his 20th visit to Canada. That the Queen joins him on her 5th visit also adds a sense of permanence and unity. The King's affection for Canada has been visible in small but telling gestures, planting a red maple at Buckingham Palace, meeting with senior Canadian officials in Sandringham, and displaying Canadian medals while inspecting HMS Prince of Wales. These are not acts of idle nostalgia. They are nods to shared history, shared service, and mutual respect. And Mark Carney, Canada's new Liberal Prime Minister, and arguably the most transatlantic political figure in recent memory, is a former governor of both the Bank of Canada and the Bank of England. He's more Whitehall than White Rock, more G7 than anything local. Yet he faces the populist challenge of Pierre and the Conservatives, and the imperial bombast of Trump, Donald J. His appeal to the King is therefore no accident. This is statecraft with velvet gloves, and by inviting the monarch to open Parliament, Carney is signalling continuity, legitimacy, and above all resistance, not rebellion, but resistance and resilience. And as Carney prepares to meet Trump at the White House next week, the King stands beside him not as a political ally, but as the sovereign witness to Canadian dignity, a reminder that Canada answers not to Capitol Hill, but to its own constitution. Some will no doubt raise Republican objections. Indeed, polls as recently as 2022 showed that a majority of Canadians might vote to end the monarchy, but constitutional crises have a way of clarifying purpose. In the face of external threats, Canadians are remembering that their parliamentary democracy is a structure, not a slogan. And the speech from the throne delivered by the King will outline Carney's domestic priorities, from bail reform and housing to economic renewal. These are not distractions, these are the essence of sovereignty, the ability to govern oneself, to legislate in the national interest. So, what shall we call this moment? A pageant, a political reset, a royal reaffirmation? I think we should call it constitutional theatre with teeth, an act of elegant defiance and national self-awareness. And King Charles, in robes and dignity, though probably not in robes, will not denounce a trade war, but his presence will say everything about Canada's self-respect. In an era of bluster and bullying, Canada has chosen diplomacy, ceremony, and the quiet strength of institutions. And that, if I may borrow from another monarch, is not just dignified, it's glorious.